The Tampa Bay Buccaneers picked the worst time for their worst offensive performance of the year. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this live post-game reaction episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. He is David Harrison at DHarrison82. We are your hosts of Locked On Bucs. I am the deputy editor of SB Nation's BucsNation.com. David is a staff writer over at BucsGameDay.com, Sports Illustrated's fan nation site covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we are here with you every Monday through Friday, along with our everydayers. We want to share our appreciation for your continued support of the show. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Oh, Bucs lost.
On today's episode, we're going to discuss our biggest takeaways and our biggest concerns moving forward following the Tampa Bay Buccaneers loss to the Detroit Lions. Hello to the Lions fans who have loyally returned to the live chat. We appreciate you. Bucs fans, we always appreciate you for coming through. And for those who don't catch the live, even afterwards, we still appreciate you anyway. But first, let's talk about the moments that changed the game for the Buccaneers again in their loss to the Detroit Lions, James. And for me, I think the moment that stood out the most as kind of an uh-oh moment was when Baker Mayfield missed Trey Palmer. All right, so at this stage in the game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are trailing 10-3 already. And there hasn't been, a lot going well, but it's also not time to hit the panic button yet. There's 2 minutes left in the first half. Dave Canales, the offensive coordinator, dials up a deep shot to Trey Palmer. Why not go after a rookie wide receiver against the Detroit Lions defense? And Baker just barely misses him. And I say barely in the scope of football, but in reality, it was quite a miss, right? And that to me was just kind of a moment where watching the game, you just kind of say, okay, like they're just off. You know what I mean? Like there's something off about this team. I don't think it's overconfidence. I don't even necessarily think it's rust. Honestly, it almost might be overexcitement, right? So like not only are you coming out of the bye, not only are you in first place in the NFC South, you're already Baker Mayfield, so you're super pumped anyway. You wake up feeling dangerous on a regular basis. But you get a first place matchup with the Detroit Lions on top of it. You get flexed to 425, and everybody knows what that means. You're doing feature spots on Fox NFL Sunday. Like, there's just a lot of attention suddenly on a Buccaneers team that a lot of people didn't really want to pay attention to outside of Caleb Williams draft talk before. You know what I mean? Like, the amount of attention on this team has really kind of shifted. And I almost wonder if Baker Mayfield was kind of coming in this game being like, this is the moment where I show everybody they were wrong about me. And we know he carries this chip on his shoulder. And sometimes that can motivate you to do some things. It's kind of like, lifting a car off the ground when your kid is inside and you need to get him before the car explodes. And I just kind of feel like he put a little too much on some of these passes because he didn't miss Trey Palmer once, he missed him twice. And Trey Palmer is a burner on the field. So that is a moment that stood out to me. Demon Hunter, I don't know why, but I looked at the live chat and immediately saw at least the Commanders beat the Falcons, because that is a silver lining that is not in the script. So I will bring it up now. The entire NFC South lost. So really, at the end of the day, the first step is what? Win your division. Everybody in the NFC South took a step back today. So guess what? Bucs are still number one.
Yeah, with a huge divisional matchup coming up next week. But yeah, that moment where Baker missed Trey Palmer on what should have been a touchdown was big. And yeah, I see Tyler in the chat saying when Mayfield missed Palmer, which time? Yeah, you take a look at, he did miss Palmer again later in the game, and you take a look at how close these throws are, and you think once they start to get that chemistry, once they start to get that connection down, that opens up a whole new level to this Buccaneers offense that we haven't seen this year, because those throws are just a little bit off. So that certainly was a big moment for sure, but it was not the biggest moment, at least not to me. To me, the biggest moment was the play call, the execution, and the result of a 3rd and 1 fade to Mike Evans in the end zone. And that play resulted in a pass interference call against Mike Evans that made it 3rd and 11. The Bucs end up not converting, and they are forced to kick a field goal, which makes it 10-6. Run the freaking ball. You know, of all the times that the Buccaneers run the ball when they shouldn't, that was the time that you run the ball because you should. And in that situation, at that moment, after the Buccaneers had kind of stolen, I'm not going to say like took momentum or gained momentum, they stole momentum because Detroit missed a long field goal, and they get the ball back with really good field position. Then Baker Mayfield throws a dart to Chris Godwin, throws a dart to Mike Evans, and you're like, okay, they're cooking a little bit, they're baking a little bit, and you get it to 3rd and 1. That's 4 down territory. I don't care that it's early in the 3rd quarter. I don't care that you just put the points on the board. I would have rather seen the Bucs be gutsy and aggressive like we've seen over the course of the first 4 games, and you go for it on 4th down if Rachaad White doesn't get that yard. Because one of 2 things happens. He either gets close enough that now you can do the Bucco Bruce tush push and Baker can sneak it for a 1st down, or if Rachaad White loses yards, okay, it's 4 down territory anyway. Now you throw it. Now you throw that jump ball to Mike Evans, or you throw a fade to Chris Godwin, or you throw it over the middle to Cade Otton or Payne Durham, who each already had big catches for 1st downs earlier in the game. That was a terrible play call and decision in that situation, because now instead of tying the game at 10-10 and really securing that momentum, you kick a field goal, you give the ball back to the Lions, and that was all she wrote. They were never in the game again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's definitely a big moment. Absolutely. And the run game is going to come up again in this episode. So I will save my thoughts for that. But certainly some big moments here. We've got some other comments in the live chat, Logan Ryan, not a good game. You know what I mean? And even to a certain extent, like outside like Levante David and maybe Calijah Kancey, which I'm not gonna talk too much about that kind of stuff. But somebody just pointed out, Glamour just pointed out in the live chat, Lions fans apparently travel really well. I've never actually covered a Lions game. That's one of the few teams I haven't covered in person, so I was not aware of that. But you could hear it during the telecast. I mean, it was Go Lions. I think it was audibly noticeable in Ray J.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's that they travel well so much as we've talked about it on the show before. Tampa's a transplant city. A lot of the people that are living there bring their fandoms with them. So there's already a lot of Detroit fans in the area. And then again, on the flip side, a lot of people plan their vacations around their favorite team's football schedule. And if you can go down to Tampa in October and it's nice and sunny and you can go to a football game, you do. It was disappointing to see that much blue in the lower bowl, but season ticket holders put their tickets up on the ticket exchange. You don't know who's buying it, but right. Lions fans are excited, and they should be. Dan Campbell is absolutely fantastic. He's got the Lions at 5-1, absolutely dominating the NFC North. They're a good football team. Jared Goff's a good quarterback. They have a good defense, and they were missing some key players in this game. So, all in all, the Bucs got beat all around in all phases: coaching, offense, defense, special teams. But there's plenty to take away from this game. And David, we are going to talk about our biggest takeaways from this one. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. If you're like me and you want to take your kid to a hockey game, or you want to try to grab some of those Foo Fighters tickets that sold out in the blink of an eye, Game Time is the place to go. And on top of those last minute deals, Game Time also has flash deals and zone deals with easy to find tickets for every kind of event in your area. Plus, you can see the view from your seat that you are looking to buy, so you know what to expect when you arrive. With Game Time's best price guarantee, if you find tickets in the same section and row for the same event for less, they will give you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Prize Picks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America, and Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on a 2 to 6 player stat projection and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is really simple to play, and I can make my picks in less than 60 seconds. From there, I just have to monitor my picks, and it really adds another layer to my football experience every weekend and Thursday night. This week, I took Antonio Gibson to get more than 26.5 yards of offense, Brian Robinson Jr. to get more than 1.5 receptions, Terry McLaurin to have more than 6.5 targets, and Travis Etienne to have more than 0.5 touchdowns. Only Antonio Gibson didn't deliver, but still got 1.5 times my money thanks to Prize Picks and their flex play option. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL, promo code LockedOnNFL. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Thanks again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen today and every day. Every dayers, greatly appreciate you coming through for group therapy on the occasions where we need a little bit of group therapy. Football season is here, and Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On NFL Kickoff Live every Friday. Locked On will go live at 2 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On YouTube channel with your hosts, Tanitra, Jarvis, and Kyle, who break down every game on the NFL slate to get you ready for your team's matchup, your fantasy lineups, your betting angles, and more. Plus, get the in-depth local analysis from our stable of NFL hosts across country who know these teams better than anyone else. Find Locked On NFL Kickoff Live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern on any Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Plenty of overreaction happening about this game, especially if you're on social media and even a little bit in the live chat. But that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for, right? to talk things out, right? There are some takeaways from this loss that we can continue to look at moving forward. And here is mine about the offense, right? Play calling is this weird thing because play calling really is a football theology situation. There is no black and white. Here's what you call in a given situation. We just have what we believe based on our experiences and what we've seen. For example, I'm not a big go for it on fourth down when you're in the first half, you're down by like a touchdown, because to me it just screams of desperation, and you know you can't beat this team without pulling out all the stops, and it's just too risky. But there are some people who would say no. Forget that. Be super aggressive, punch him in the mouth, and go for it on a fourth. No, neither is wrong. It just depends on the outcome being wrong or right. Here's what I would say about Dave Canales and the offense. It's a work in progress. I think what everybody has to understand and remember, every new thing that happens this season to Dave Canales is the first time it's ever happened to him as an offensive coordinator, as a play caller. Every single thing that happens, every time his defense gives up a massive play to an offense they weren't expected to give a massive plays to, and now all of a sudden he's down 2 scores and he's got to catch up before the end of the half. That's the first time he's ever lived that experience. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of moving pieces. Now, I'm not excusing the lackluster performance. The lackluster performance happened. But what you have to do, and what these coaches are going to do, is they're going to look at the positives. I saw somebody in the live chat. I can't keep up with all the comments. I love all the comments, but I can't keep up with them. Someone said, Aiden, who? Great job, O-line. Well, Aiden Hutchinson, one of the best pass rushers in the National Football League, and he's only in like year 2. Like I don't even know. Like this dude can't even rent a car in some states. You know what I mean? But he's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And Luke Gedeke, someone who some people, David Harrison, were talking about not being worth being on this roster anymore after last season, absolutely did a wonderful job at right tackle. Now, in my defense, that was as a left guard. He's a right tackle now. Totally different guy. So that's something that's worth looking at, right? There are pieces here that are worth looking at. Yes, Baker Mayfield missed Trey Palmer, but the fact that Trey Palmer was open, the fact that Trey Palmer was available, the fact that Mike Evans was available for a potential fade that, no, it didn't work, but it was a good potential play if, flags go one way or the other. There are a lot of things to look at that this team can build around. The problem is they're missing one very important piece, James, and that's the end part of this takeaway. After I just said focus on the positive, they don't have a run game. And part of the reason they don't have a run game is because they don't have the ability to do what the Detroit Lions, for example, can do with David Montgomery and pound the ball down your throat. Rachaad White's not that guy. We knew that last year. We talked about it coming into the offseason. I'm an Arizona State graduate myself. I'm a Sun Devil dude. I love Rachaad White. When we went to training camp last year, James, Rachaad White was like the first player I wanted to go talk to. Not Tom Brady, not Mike Evans, not Chris Godwin, Rachaad White, because I'm an ASU guy. Rachaad White is not capable of leading a running back room by himself. But there's a lot of people that aren't. David Montgomery is not. Christian McCaffrey these days doesn't even do it by himself, right? There's a lot of NFL running backs that need a change of pace guy. Rachaad White is a good zone run guy. He's a good pass catcher guy, when he needs to be, but he's not a power dude. He's not a guy to go in there and punch these teams in the gut. And that is what the Buccaneers are missing, especially when they go up against a team like the Detroit Lions. We talked about this. This is a street fight. You can't come in here and just make chess moves, because while you're making chess moves, Dan Campbell is breaking your chessboard and setting it on fire. You have to come out here and be able to slug it out with a team that's going to slug you first. The Buccaneers are missing that. The problem is, with all the positives, you can't manufacture a slugger. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just tell Sean Tucker, hey, bro, start eating a lot of carbs. We're going to make you a bowling ball. Like, that's not going to happen. So they've either got to find a way to scheme around it, or unfortunately, you got to deal with it. That's going to be your limitation. And you've got to find ways to make the other parts of your offense more effective. Again, Trey Palmer gets hit on those deep routes. That's you making your finesse offense more effective. The problem is when that doesn't happen and that doesn't work like it did today, you have no counter.
Yeah, the run game is a big concern. For those of you that do read my work, I am going to have something written up about what happened with the run game and Rachaad White in my pick 6 that drops Monday morning. So I'm going to kind of save some of my comments for that. But yeah, I mean, what the Lions do with the run game, whether it's Montgomery or Craig Reynolds, who's a freaking kick returner, they do it effectively. And the Bucs defense did a good job of slowing down their run game, but the Bucs have to find a way to get that aspect of their offense going. I'm going to keep my biggest takeaway quick, and I am going to spin it to the positive before, spoiler alert, going to get a little negative coming up after the next break. But that is that Calijah Kancey is really good. He ended up with 3 tackles, a tackle for loss, a sack, 2 quarterback hits, but he got lots of push, lots of pressure, and was a big impact in the run game. There were a couple of times that Reynolds had the ball and was starting to move. Calijah Kancey closed up that lane, forced Reynolds to bounce outside, and guess what? You had Levante David waiting for him. You had Devin White waiting for him. You had Vita Vea waiting for him. Reynolds didn't really get a whole lot going in that really good Detroit run game because Calijah Kancey was a force. The best news about that is he's going to continue to get better week in and week out. This is a guy that had not played since the second quarter of week 1, came in and had an immediate impact to the defense. Keep an eye on that. Hopefully they can turn more of those pressures into sacks. He did get a sack on Jared Goff in the fourth quarter, his first career one. But overall, you have to like what you saw out of Calijah Kancey, because the Bucs focusing on the defensive trenches with their first round picks the last couple of years, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Logan Hall, Calijah Kancey is easily the best of those 3 in his rookie season compared to those guys' rookie season. So Calijah Kancey, good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you stole that one because Calijah Kancey jumped off the screen. I mean, honestly, guys, like I had to do my Locked On Commanders show after the Commanders game. So I'm watching this Bucs game and I'm having to like fast forward through commercials and like, the part where they talk between plays. I'm skipping over that stuff. So I'm having to watch this thing in very quick motion, and Calijah Kancey jumped off the screen, even watching it in a rushed fashion. So yeah, Calijah Kancey is, I mean, this dude missed training camp, like a portion of training camp. He missed a lot of the season. Like, this kid is that good with how much he's missed, bro. They got a real one right there. If he can be healthy, they got a real one.
All right. Well, finally, we are going to talk about what we are concerned about heading into week 7 and beyond. That is next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Once you add your job posting, go ahead and add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile and spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus their leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Wrapping things up here on a live post-game reaction episode of Locked On Bucs. And real quick to everybody in the chat, love all the comments, love kind of the gamesmanship back and forth. Just again, I will reiterate, I already put it in the chat. Be respectful. Don't be calling names. Don't be making nasty comments to one another. Lions fans are in here. Bucs fans are in here. The Lions played an absolutely fantastic football game. They are a very good football team. They won. It happens. David and I both thought the Buccaneers were going to win this one. The offense couldn't get things going. It happens. But just asking you guys, keep it nice, keep it civil in the chat. But David, there were some concerning things that we saw in this game, and it's more than missed plays like missing Trey Palmer, Mike Evans' drop at the 50-yard line on what would have been a big third down conversion. It's more than bad play calls like a fade to Mike Evans on 3rd and 1 instead of running the ball and trying to get that yard, or Dan Campbell continuing to be one of the fastest rising and best coaches in the league. And for me, the thing that I am most concerned about is the health of Baker Mayfield. Now, he looked bad in this game. There's no getting around it. 19 of 37 for 206 and an interception. 51% completion percentage, by far his worst as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. And in the first half of this game, he injured a finger on his throwing hand. Now, the broadcast said that it was his index finger that was bleeding. It looked to me like it was his middle finger that was bleeding. Either way, the next time he had the ball in his hand, he threw 2 darts back to back to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. And it was like, all right, well, he's slinging the ball, the finger, I guess, should be fine. But then you get to the end of the game and Baker Mayfield on 4th and 10 throws it high for Cade Otton, took a crown of the helmet to the chin. Should have been a flag. It wasn't. The grand scheme of things, it might have made the score look a little bit prettier. It wasn't going to change the outcome of the game. But when he comes off the field, after taking a shot to the head, he's not moving his left arm. His left arm's just kind of like dangling there, and he's you can't see me, but he's kind of holding it the way you would in a sling. After the game, he's walking to the locker room, and once again, he's not moving his left arm. That is a huge concern. It's a excuse me. It is a massive concern. Is this something where he got a stinger? He was sore. What was going on? Like, is he going to be able to recover from this and be all right for this week, leading up to the game against the Falcons? Or is this an opening for Kyle Trask to get his first start? And despite Baker Mayfield's poor performance on Sunday, he's been really good. Like, leading the NFL in passer rating on 3rd down. Is leading the NFL in passer rating under pressure, leading the NFL career highs in completion percentage at 80%, and leading or his all-time career high 5 touchdown passes on third downs this year. Like, he's been really, really good. And an injury like this could derail the progress that he's made, the progress overall that the offense has made. How big of a step back would they take if Kyle Trask ends up the starter?
Pretty significant one, but I think we'll save that conversation until we need to have that conversation, because I don't want to have that conversation. Here's the last thing I'll say about the offense. Like, with the run game thing that I just kind of went off on for a little bit, there's no way to fix that this season, to be quite honest with you. Like, you're not going to manufacture power when you have no power backs, unless you go trade for Javonte Williams, and the Denver Broncos are willing to trade Javonte Williams, which I don't think they're even going to tear it down to the studs that much if they do start selling off pieces. What has me really kind of concerned, honestly, though, is the lack of contingency plans, right? So every team has, well, not every team wants to have an identity, right? Like, this is who we are on the football field. Whether it's, like, you look at the 49ers, they're a different team offensively than they are defensively. Offensively, they're a lot more speed, finesse, trickeration. Defense, they're more line up and just punch you in the mouth, right? You look at the Detroit Lions, they're line up and punch you in the mouth on both sides of the field. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are seeking out their true identity, because you have new coaches, you have new players, especially quarterbacks, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, you know who you are, how you want to win football games, but you also need to know what happens if we can't do that, right? You have to have the contingency plan. The Detroit Lions, when David Montgomery went out of that game, I think most people probably looking at this and say, man, that's a really big loss for them, because that's part of their identity. Like, David Montgomery plays to the Detroit Lions identity. So now that they lost the guy that is the best part of their identity on offense, what are they going to do? Well, they turned into a track team. You know what I'm saying? They turned on their NASCAR package. The problem was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers didn't appear to come into this game and say, okay, we think the Detroit Lions are more of a power team, kind of force our will on you type of a team. If they don't come with us or come at us with that mentality, what do we do then? They had no contingency plan for who the Detroit Lions could be outside of what we think they are. That, to me, was the biggest problem, because they've got receivers running in and out of space, crossing over, doing other things, running backs running in and out of space. And what's happening is wide open areas in zone coverage, because these defenders don't know how to react to what they're seeing in front of them now. And unscouted looks are really hard to deal with, but you have to have some sort of kind of just bookend guidance for your players. And I think that's the reason a lot of these things ended up happening. The defense, by and large, you give up 20 points to any team in the NFL, you feel like you probably have a chance to win, so you don't want to roast them too much. But there were too many passes, especially third and long passes, where there's just wide open spaces and zones. There's dudes that are manned up against guys that shouldn't be manned up against guys. There's safeties who are supposed to be single high, deep cover guys, and they're letting dudes get behind them. Like, I deal with this covering the Washington Commanders right now. If you're the deep safety, your job, number one, is to be deeper than their deepest guy. You cannot let somebody behind you. And not only do they let somebody behind them, they let somebody behind them on a consistent basis. Guys out of zone position, right? There was just a lot of kind of undisciplined play, which you don't usually see from this unit, I don't think. So to me, it kind of stunk of a team that when the Detroit Lions had to turn on the speed because they lost their power, the Buccaneers defense didn't have an answer for it. And to me, that's on the coaching staff. You have to have an answer. Okay, you have to know who they are, but what if they aren't who we thought they were? To quote the great Dennis Green. And they didn't have that answer. And that's going to be a problem moving forward. You know what I mean? Everybody comes in against, the Atlanta Falcons thing, and they're just going to run the ball down your throat. Well, what happens when they run a bunch of vertical routes and Desmond Ritter's throwing the ball 60 yards downfield? If you're not ready for it, you might get roasted. You might not, because you might miss a whole bunch of them and you escape back to DC with a win, but you might get roasted because he gets better at it. So that's my big concern. And that's when they can't fix. You know what I mean? You have to come in understanding who your opponent is, but you also have to understand how they can counter their own tendencies and how you need to be ready for that.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So it's a tough loss. It's a tough loss for Bucs fans. Again, congratulations to the Lions and all the Lions fans in the chat. But that is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Bucs. Coming up tomorrow, I will be flying solo, and I will be talking more about some of the play calling issues and diving deeper into my thoughts on Dave Canales, as well as what the defense was able to do. In the meantime, make sure that you are following along on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JArco_Bucs, and at DHarrison82. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and follow along on your favorite podcast catcher of choice. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you all so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.